Jeremy, I want to talk about our screw-up of the week. And our
Get into
screw-up
it.
of the week is combined with our European news of the week. So I'm going to update you being an American, on what's going on here. So on Sunday, the president of Real Madrid, along with 11 other European soccer teams, the biggest 11 outside of the ones in Germany and France, so Manchester United, Juventus, all the ones you've heard of, announced going forward after this year, they would no longer participate in the Champions League, which is the league that all the cross-European teams play in, and they would form their own breakaway Super League. Now, when they announced it, they had 12 teams, and they said there would be 15 founding members, so they needed 3 more. The 3 were obvious. There were 2 teams from Germany and 1 from France, but they weren't signing up yet. They announced it with no major broadcast partner, so they said broadcast partner to be named later. JP Morgan came in the mix and offered about £350 million upfront payment for getting in on the deal that would be offset by later future revenue. So Real Madrid, who's $900 million in debt, thought that was a pretty good deal. And so they are sort of smiling at midnight. They did a press conference at midnight European time. Everyone wakes up in Europe, and it's like the biggest clubs are forming a breakaway league. And then the following situations happen. UEFA, the organization that runs the Champions League, said your players, if you in the breakaway league, will not be able to participate in the European Championships. They will not be able to participate in the World Cup if we have our way. We're petitioning FIFA. And we're going to ask, effectively, your domestic leagues, like the Premier League, to kick you out of the league instantly if you go forward with this. So they came out there and said, go for it. You're going to go with, you're going to just tick. So then about 10, basically the series of events transpired. Fans engaged in massive protests. Everything went hair on fire. And 2 days later, all the 6 English teams said, oopsie daisy, my fault, we're backing out. But let me be very clear, Jeremy. This wasn't like they announced a plan. They filed legal papers in 3 countries. They filed notice of separation. They had signed a memorandum. They were absolutely dead serious. They did not discuss it ahead of time with their players. They did not discuss it ahead of time with their fans. There are these coaches in press conferences that learned about it in the press conference, like, hey, what do you think of it? One coach got fired instantly for basically not supporting it. This all happened. And now it's dead. It's dead in 48 hours later. So it was, I don't know what. So you must have heard about it. Like, what can I tell you about this? What are you thinking about this? But what's your reaction to this 48-hour, just demonstrably idiotic go-to-market plan where no consumer wanted it and everybody rejected it instantly?
Yeah, like, so when I first heard about it, and people were like, "Oh, blah blah blah, Super League, what are they doing?" I was like, I don't understand what is happening here. So I think I went like a day, like, whatever, shoulder shrug, I don't get it. And the teams were falling out. I'm like, okay. And as I listen to other podcasts or read other news, I was like, okay, let me try to educate myself, because this apparently is too hot. Everyone's talking about it. So I didn't think I got it until I really started understanding some of this. Like Champions League, in every country, there's all these divisions, and maybe you can make your way up and then roll up. So it's like, okay, here's this rags to riches story that never happens, because it's probably the same. I'm sure 90 to 95% of the same teams probably make the thing
they do.
every single time. All right. But it's like, all right, some of that dream would be gone, because as I understood it, there'd be like the 15 teams and then like 5 spots open for.
They didn't say how you get in there, but 5 spots open,
Right. But it's more like, but when I realized it's really like a way those 15 teams are like, we want guaranteed money. We want like you mentioned the one team in debt, and I kind of heard it or on another
Real
podcast.
Madrid, deep in debt. So is Barcelona.
And they're like, so if they don't make whatever Champions League, I don't know the names, like their host, they cannot not have that money.
Yes.
They are too far in debt.
Genuinely.
So, from that perspective, you're like, oh, guaranteed dollars? Yeah, screw the normal way. Right. So that way I get it. And the best way I've kind of heard it explained for Americans is like, imagine the NCAA and some of the top 4 SEC teams, Clemson, like USC, Texas, UCLA, 20 of those teams are like, you know what, NCAA, we're good. Bye-bye. We're just gonna go do our own thing here, man. And if you're thinking about that, it's kind of like, well, actually, why don't they do that?
Honestly, they've probably been thinking about it, but here's what my advice would be before you do it. talk to your fans, see how they'd feel about it. Talk to your coaches and players, see how they feel about it. And if they tell you they'd hate it, then don't do it. So Jeremy, what happened here was, so Real Madrid, there's a difference of what's going on here. The English teams in the top division play in what's called the Premier League. Mm-hmm. The Premier League is the highest grossing league on the planet in any sport. And so the Premier League is this incredibly lucrative league to be in. The English teams wanted to stay in the Premier League and then also on the Wednesdays play in this Super League instead of playing in the UEFA Champions League. Yeah. They really cannot economically survive getting kicked out of the Premier League. That's where a lot of the money comes from. So when it came out that they were threatened that they'd get kicked out of the Premier League, now it turns out in the Premier League bylaws, they need explicit permission to participate in any competition outside of UEFA organized competitions. So the Premier League basically came out and said, we're not threatening you. We're just going to enforce the contract we already have. You have a very simple choice. You can leave the Premier League and do this Super League stuff, or you can stay in and not do it. And that's when they backed out. The thing is, in Spain and Italy, the domestic leagues are nowhere near as lucrative. So you've heard of Real Madrid and Barcelona. There's 18 other teams out there that they play, and a lot of those games are very uncompetitive. Also in Italy, you've heard of Paul Juventus, some of the top teams, but you've not heard of the other 18. So those teams actually don't care if they're kicked out of their domestic league. They probably don't care at all. So they haven't backed out of the plan. So what I think will end up happening is they'll end up forming a not Super League, but like a better league, like that's combining Spain and Italy, basically. And it might be the top 10 teams from each. And, it's based on a 5-year historical performance. So you don't run the risk if you have one bad year of getting knocked out. So like their budget gets, I think something like that will happen because they haven't backed down. They're still saying they want to do something because ultimately they just are probably tired of playing Cordoba and all of these teams that don't draw money. And they'd rather play teams from across the way. But that might be what happens, or they might just back down completely. But the thing about it is, like from a business perspective, and you do business, you cannot make big business decisions and not talk to, like, if you're a football soccer team, you have sort of 3 stakeholders. The players and the fans are certainly 2 of them. And then you have your competitions, right, that you're in and your TV revenue. But like, if you got to talk to your fans, the fans, honestly, were so irate on the, like 90% of fans hated this because football clubs in Europe are not as much of a business as like an NFL team is. They're more like you're a member of the club. Your dad was a member. Your mom was a member. You have your season tickets. It's more of like by the people situation. So like I actually think if they had split away, they would have just like, Manchester United would become much less popular. And once they saw that, they were like, yep, back in. So I don't know. That to me is a screw of the week. But it really is, honestly, I couldn't imagine a stranger, weirder, and like the stories behind this, Jeremy, you won't believe the crazy shit that happened. So like the head of the European Club Association that represents all the clubs was part of this group making the secret Super League plans. And on Friday, he's shaking hands with the head of UEFA, who's the godfather of his daughter, and they're close family friends. And then on Saturday, this guy that is the turncoat, like, is no calls, no show to the meeting. Because they were going to announce on Monday the new Champions League structure. This was all about to happen. So they're like, we can't find him. They call his wife. We can't find him. She's like, I don't know. And then they can't find him all weekend. They think he's lost and everything like that. Then he comes on TV and is like, we're forming a breakaway league. And the head of UEFA is like, you know what? Business isn't personal, but this is personal. It's like the godfather of the guy's daughter. Like, this is what's happening. Right. Also, if you're not aware, the Euro 2020 tournament, the Euro Cup between nations, got postponed to 2021. That's happening in 6 weeks' time. So UEFA just said, by the way, any member, if this doesn't stop right now, anyone playing for one of these teams cannot participate in this massive soccer tournament that's happening in 6 weeks. So it's like the worst time to announce it because their leverage is super high because none of the national teams want to lose these players. It was like actually, I think, like the dumbest business thing I've ever. It's just like a dumb business thing on like full display to the world. JP Morgan's credit rating got dropped because they backed this stupid shit. I'm not making this up. JP Morgan's credit rating just got dropped because they were willing to back this crap. So everyone screwed up. Like I couldn't imagine something this dumb, but that's what happened. It's been all the news. My wife and I, I've been reading on it a ton. My wife is really sweet to me. She reads a lot of stuff, and she's been reading on it. And like I'm like, you want to talk about Super League? She's like, okay.
Yeah, fine, Justin, but you're on a clock, buddy.
Exactly.